Okay, this is the October edition of LoopBack Maintainers call. Mario, we cannot hear you. It's muted.
Yeah.
Yeah, great. All right. So, what do we discuss about today?
Yeah, so maybe just before Mario joined, I think we have sort of provided my update on the OpenJS Foundation side. It seems the transfer, there seems to be some legal agreements that needs to be done between IBM and OpenJS Foundation. So I'm working through that as well. So I will follow up, and hopefully, like, what I hope is to get everything done well before US Thanksgiving, so that we can start making the changes. And then like that's after US Thanksgiving is people will start going on for holidays. So so hope that to get that done. And as you know, the hackathon, the Hacktoberfest is ongoing. So I think we see some PRs coming in, and not only in the Loopback Next, but also in some other repos. So I think I saw one in the Loopback IO, and then maybe like a separate ones in the connectors one. Which brings me to my topic of the day is the yes, currently is the maintainer for the individual repos. So they are mostly no longer maintaining it. So it's kind of out of date. And I know that like Mario and Rifa has been putting a lot of effort to like contributing code and also to like help maintaining it. So wonder how do we go about like updating the maintainer list, or like how do we go, because and also there are some individual contributors that will contribute into particular connectors, not the others, right? And yes.
Yeah. So for the, I'm guessing you're talking about the code owners file for each of the repos, right? Uh,
Yeah.
yeah. So I'm okay with changing like shuffling the code owners around for like if someone wants to like take responsibility for that repository. Uh, I think perhaps a more important question also to go along with it is like what exactly is the code owner's responsibility, especially in the loopback contribution model, right? Because loopback, we do it on a best effort basis. It's not like we are a single company that, and this is like our product that we're selling. So we don't want to perhaps burden one person to like approve every single request. So I'm wondering like what's the relationship there like? At least for what I'm doing right now is that uh, I for like none for like PRs that are not so dangerous, right? I just look at it and I just approve it and it just goes through. But I'm wondering what are everyone else's opinions on that? Do we what does the code owner do and like that we have to approve every single PR?
One thing we used to do as code owners was triage the issues. Maybe not immediately start working on it, but triage it. And when it comes to implementation, it was definitely based on priority.
I think like the triaging of the issue and also reviewing the PRs, and I think that's pretty much like the sort of the expectation. And so of course, like there are maintainers is not only maintaining particular connectors, right? And so they may be doing it for loopback next and just like a lot of us. So yeah, so I think one of the things that like that bring into question is to be go through the same like nomination process that we go through, or like for example, since like Riva and Mario is already like part of the maintainer group, then we just bring you to on board for particular connectors that you have contribution in, and like for say there are some external contributors that has more contributions, then we can start the nomination process.
Yeah. So what implications will it have, for example, to change the code owners from the PR review process? Probably is the fact that it will pick up the current active maintainers, more or less, right?
Yeah, so when the new PR comes in, then whoever in the co-owner file will be notified. So they will be the default reviewers.
Mm-hmm. I think that really makes sense because people that are not active, for example, are pick up and then they're just left like that, and then you are not notified, for example.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think it makes sense in that sense.
Yeah. So, at least for my side, for my GitHub account, I actually already subscribe to all of the different repos notifications. So, whether I'm a code owner or not, I receive the notification for I think most of the LoopBack IO repos as is. Because yeah, because for notification, I think you, Diana, and Raymond, I'm not too sure. I think it's you two that are admins of the GitHub organization. Both of you receive notifications for all of the repos, and for maintainers like me and Mario and and everyone else can actually subscribe to the repos that we want to look after as well. So, what I'm more concerned about is like what is exactly the responsibilities of the code owners, and because we're doing it on like a best effort basis, what is the fallback plan if the code owner is busy with other things, right?
Mm-hmm. I think the best way would be is like there will be more than one co-owners in a particular repos. Otherwise, yes, you're right. Like it will be, that means the person is sort of the default person to take care of everything for that repo, right? But again, I think the connectors repo and like don't have too many PRs coming in. So I think most of them is going through the loopback next. So hopefully it is not too much of a burden. Say if you're added to one of the co-owners for one of the repos, does it make sense?
Yeah, I think it makes sense. Uh, I guess probably because there isn't much data to work on this, at least for the connector repos. So I don't know like how many code owners is actually required for like our maintainer size to like ensure that all the pull requests gets merged on time in a timely manner, right? But I guess we can start off to like start thinking, okay, which repos do we want to like change the code owners, like who's not as active, and maybe we can delegate to someone who may be able to help the community more.
Mm.
So for that case, are we looking at all of the connectors?
We can do it in one at a time, and whichever that has more activity. So for example, for MySQL and MongoDB, I think those are or maybe even Postgres are the more active ones. So maybe we can look at those at first, and then if when there are more activity for other repos, and since you got notification, I got notification too, and then so we can evaluate in the next round, or yeah.
Right. Okay. And uh, are we potentially expanding this to like the non-connector repos as well, like strong handler and strong scope and strong error handler?
Yeah. Of course, yeah. I mean everything under the loopback IO GitHub org.
Right. Okay. Sure thing. I think we can create maybe a new issue in the governance repository so that we can keep track of this.
Okay.
Or before like a discussion,
Yeah,
like
discussion.
a private discussion in the TSC.
Okay. So I can do that. Okay. Thank you. So anyone has anything to add in terms of the co-owner proposal?
I think that the only concern for me would be the notification, for example, because sometimes you get a PR, right? And then once you get it, then that's fine. Doesn't really matter. The list there. There are some PRs that you don't even know that they exist because I have notifications on all repositories, for example. If we get that mechanism, probably that would be there, for example. And that's for that part. And I break up, I guess. Breaking up.
You're back now.
Yeah. Yeah. That's for me and that part. Secondly, for example, that there are many these connectors that are especially highly used, like MySQL, Mongo. They need to actually be updated also in terms of the package versions. For example, there is a PR right now that the guy is trying to add composite keys in the migration side, and there is an MSSQL package that it is based on that is really far away from the current version. For example, we don't know if we are still compatible with this person, right? So there is a lot of work to do really in the repos. I think that they are kind of like forgotten for now, but at least we need to update to the current versions to see if we can catch up that part. So, right?
Yeah, I agree that the dependencies are they're starting to lose track over time because I think it was a manual process before, and we haven't brought it up to use the or to leverage our Renovate bot yet. Uh, I have created the CI/CD repo, but I've not added anything into it yet. My hope is that to figure out what is a common, sensible renovate board config that we can use across all of our repos and then just extend that so that all the connectors, if we need to like change our renovate board, we can only change it in one place. We don't need to like go across all of the connectors. Uh, at this moment, I haven't like come up with any renovate board config yet. But if any of you have any idea like what would be a nice config to start off with, then perhaps you can open a PR on the CI/CD repo, and then we can use that as the basis for all the other repositories.
I remember there are a few that's besides the loopback next, we have the Renovate bot enabled. Would are those the default settings? Well, are the configuration in those work?
I think there was one I tried. Uh, so that one I tried to extend the config from LoopBack but then I kind of wised up over time when I continued to read more on the best practices for Renovate bots. So apparently it's not a good idea to extend like the config you actually use in the repo. You're supposed to extend from a base config that you don't directly use in any manner. So, which is why I created the CI/CD repo. And for the Renovate bot, the problem with that Renovate bot is that it doesn't tell you when you misconfigured the configuration file until you merged it, and then it will tell you after the fact. So I kind of reverted that config addition quite quickly, and I haven't revisited it since. So, which is also why I added the Renovate CLI and the CI link step in LoopBack next, so that if we ever modify the config, then we will be notified in the PR itself instead of like after merging. I believe one of the maintainers have raised the PR because Renovate constantly updates their npm package way too frequently. Perhaps we can set a limit of how frequently these packages are updated. So that's another problem to address.
Yeah.
The Renovate bot. Sorry, one question. So the Renovate bot is per repo, right? Or you're saying that there's a way that you can set up a repo and then specify. Well, you can specify the configuration in one place, and then so that it can be used in multiple repos.
You can specify in one place, and then in the repos you can set the configuration file to extend from that. So yeah, in a way you can do that. So like you can just make a change in one place, and then it will propagate to all the other.
I see.
And okay, and the frequency, as you mentioned, right? The frequency that it generates the updates of the dependencies.
Yeah,
Can that be configured else?
I think it was Modis that created a PR to potentially to like remove the Renovate npm package, right? So that's a separate thing. The npm package I added into the mono repo because I wanted to make sure that our Renovate config is actually valid before we merge. Because without it, then we don't know if it's valid until after we merge. Then Renovate starts creating all these issues about it. So now the problem is that it Renovate itself, they push a lot of npm updates. I think like more than once every day. So the GitHub keeps generating like alerts about it, like oh here's a new version of Renovate, way too frequently. So that's the second issue that I'm looking into solving. Like, can we limit how many times Renovate updates a certain package over a period of time?
Yeah, and you already has this repository in place, you mentioned?
It's an empty repository for now. For now, I only used it. It's called CI/CD. It's under the LoopBack IO org. Right now, it only has one issue. It's just keeping track of the migration of the CI/CD pipeline, so all the repos.
Oh, I see.
I just sent it in the group chat, the repo link. Sorry that I have to go, and but nice talking you to you today, and I will create the co-owner things for in the discussion. Thanks.
Thanks,
Bye.
Diana.
And take care. Have a nice day.
Bye.
See you, Diana.
Okay, so what next? What else?
Yeah. So I'm thinking we should submit like the common Renovate bot config into the CI/CD repo as well, right? Because it's related to CI/CD. That may be a good place to place it instead of like governance or the mono repo. Right now it's empty. I'm just using it to like keep track of the one issue, which is like migrating our CI/CD pipelines to GitHub Actions, which is a bit of an arduous process. It's every database has a whole different way of like starting up, and then like how you actually keep track of whether that's up and running. So it's moving a lot slower than anticipated, but at least this we can keep track of the progress.
Yeah, and you have made progress actually. It looks pretty impressive.
Still a lot more to go. Yeah, so any remarks, comments, or inquiries about that repo, or like the progress of the CI/CD pipeline?
Yeah, you will be hooking up initially in the main repo, or which repo you will be starting
For which one?
for to connect the CI/CD.
For the CI/CD, I've already
Renovate. Yeah.
Renovate.
Yeah, for Renovate.
I'm thinking perhaps that's a bit of a like it's difficult to pick like which one we want to start off with. I'm thinking perhaps we can do. Let's see.
Because I don't think do the repositories for the connectors, database connectors, do they have renovate already?
No, most of the repos don't have renovate configured yet. I think only LoopBack Nets actually has renovate running. Everything else, renovate is just waiting for us to set up the initial config. I'm thinking we should start perhaps to answer your question, like which one are we going to start with first? I think maybe strong soap or strong error handler would be a safe bet because like there's no like interdependencies between each other's packages within the LoopBack IO organization. So perhaps we can start there first.
Yeah.
Or maybe the gRPC. I think there's a separate gRPC as well, so there can be another thing we can try. So yeah, I think that's if that's all on the renovate, I think we can move on to Stalebot. Okay, so I brought up that I wanted to bring up Stalebot because I've noticed quite a number of feedback over time from the community saying the Stalebot isn't really a nice thing to have because like for us we are working on issues on a best effort basis. There's always a lot of issues more than what we can actually handle, and I think that's fine. Just that the Stalebot doesn't really help here because you have issues that has conversations that cannot um, stop mid at some point and then silence and then like 2 months or 4 months later Stalebot comes in and starts closing the issues, which I mean, the issues are usually typically still valid issues, are still real problems or real feature requests, right? So in the end, what happens, at least for me, is that I keep reviewing, I keep opening them. So in the end, it becomes like this fight with Scalebot, like to always continuously like reopen a lot of issues because Scalebot also closes all these issues in like batches. So
Right.
you see the notifications like Stillbot closes like 20 issues at one go.
Yeah. Correct.
So maybe it was helpful back then. I think it made sense for a while because like it helped like actual skill issues. But then now I think we're kind of aware of the skill issues. It's just that we don't have the capacity to support those. And Skillbot kind of just solve the wound for those issues, right? So maybe perhaps you could consider like disabling Stalebot in favor of like better try and more transparent try aging.
Mhm.
So I think to get your opinion on this, right?
Yeah, maybe increase the time period which would trigger Stalebot, like make it 1 year of no attendance, then maybe it can close.
1 year.
What do you say?
Harry.
Yeah, it's a long 1 year is a long time. I'm wondering what like if we think about it, what's the benefit of Stalebot, right? I guess it does give a reminder, hey, these issues you haven't looked at in a long time.
Right.
But I'm wondering if proper tri-aging would be a better solution to this, right? Like, oh, each maintainer, if they have the capacity to do so, like actually assign themselves to an issue and then actually proactively work on the issue, right? So we could potentially increase Stalebot, or maybe another suggestion, maybe actually disable Stalebot altogether.
Yeah, that also I think is a good option, like disable, and once the the team condition is in such a manner that the stale bot would become useful again, then re-enable it again.
Very simple, but
Yeah.
that way you won't have any headache with yeah, but you seem like you are retired. I mean, you are like more soft on that, right? Let's see. Just remove it.
Uh, you know, it's shared frustration between me and the community, right? It's like I sympathize with them. Yeah, still bot doesn't look good, right? Like,
Right.
it's not that maintainers ignoring or anything like that. You just don't have the time to review all the issues and solve them um, quickly. Obviously, it'd be great if you can solve them quickly, but not all issues can be solved quickly. And usually there's a lot of like blocking or intermediary things you need to do, which makes it a lot more complicated. So, I mean, I think we should like do a quick vote on Slack also, just to get a consensus whether or not we should remove it or not for now. So what do you think? Should we like get a vote on that?
I think so.
Okay. I'll put it into the Slack later after this call then for a vote. This is your vote.
Yep.
All right. Great.
Yeah. On my side, I was still battling. As a company, what we wanted was these events that happens at the repository level. Like for example, I wanted clean code in terms of no, just an example. You you make a payment, for example, then the payment is inserted, then you go and search for the customer and reduce the balance, for example, and then you go and flag the invoice as paid, for example. So this can this can be more or less as follows. You make the payment, and then you update the invoice. The update of the invoice triggers something that reduces the balance for the customer, for example. So you see like three events, right? Three different events. I wanted a way to actually have the observability and a good pattern for this type of scenarios, right? In line of business applications. That's why I haven't succeeded yet, right? But I'm just trying to find what would be the best way in LoopBack to place this code. I try first to add the events at the repository, trying to leverage the provider. Did some more or less some tests, but I'm not sure if that's the best way. I'm sharing the repo that I share with Raymond in the Slack, so that maybe you can take a look at that. That's a small extension that you can use. If you use that extension, then um, it's working fine, right? Except that in the in the to-do list example, whenever you add this code, the to-do at some point is failing in some delete operation, for example, I think that delete is trying to make a find and then it's claiming to return a promise, but it's not expecting a promise, and I'm not touching anything in the find. So more or less, our POC is more or less working, but I'm not sure if I'm going in the right direction on that, right? So the use case scenario is to have an observability in the events that you touch records in the database, and then you cascade events, and the events that react actually are well documented. And you can even have more than one event per operation, like after insert can have two. For example, whenever you place an order, you would like to actually fire not only the balance for the customer, but also an email. So that's two events. You can place the same code in one single file, or you can add two triggers, right? In the scenario. But more or less, I'm just trying to find out if that would be the correct way, right? Leveraging the provider then.
Yeah, I don't think I can provide like I can't be a replacement for like a maintainer quorum. So I can't really say like is this the correct, definitive correct way of doing it, right? Because if we think about it, it involves quite a bit of checking a lot of code, including like juggler and whatnot to see how this all fits together. I think the POC you demonstrated I think a while back is actually quite a nice idea. And if we want to, I think at the very least, if you're not sure if it fits the loopback model, at least provide it as an extension, like kind of like what source views already does. Even though uh, they don't, even though they don't necessarily have to see if it fits the loopback style, right? But if
Yeah.
it works for them, then they open source it as a extension. And
Yeah, and the extension code is right there, right? It's in the loop in the repository that I shared. So I'm just planning to add it as an extension, and even the creation of the trigger, right, or the event is going to be generated from the extension side. So the extension will be contributing to the CLI generator also. And so I'm just trying to. That's going to be the last step, right? So at least I need to find a way feedbacks, right, to see if that will be a good way to achieve that.
yeah, well, I think this one we need everyone on board, right? We need everyone to kind of discuss
Yeah.
more than three people. So like maybe Raymond knows something that we don't, or like
Yeah.
something that we don't, and we'd love to hear what they think as well.
Yep. Yeah, I'm also working on the graphics. I didn't really have time all these weeks. Just trying to put the footer in one place, and then it grabs the footer for the OpenJS Foundation migration thing for documentation. I'm still working on that part. And then uh, have you flagged any of the current PRs as the Oktoberfest from DigitalOcean?
I think I have not personally set any of the PRs as Hacktoberfest, but I think I'm not too sure. I think it was Diane. Correct me if I'm wrong. Uh, has tagged a few PRs for Hacktoberfest. I think there's a handful of PRs for Hacktoberfest.
Yeah. Okay. So, Japasi, in case you take a look at the code that I sent through this chat, maybe whenever you have some time, you can give me some feedback,
Sure.
right?
And a quick feedback about your website, which I happened to open after looking at this repo. It's not loading. Are you aware about that?
It's not
EYC,
loading the.
yeah, eycgroup.com is not loading.
Yeah, I think it's not loading because. Yeah, it's not loading because whenever you click from this, actually it does something. But if you copy and paste it, it will load, right? If you just click, it won't load because that's a security fund.
Oh wow, okay, let me try. EYC group. No. Rifa, does it
Just
load for you?
Uh, I'll continue testing from my end. I just started loading. Uh, mm, yeah, I'll let you try to load. So I, I do want to bring one more thing to attention, right?
Mhm.
Juggler. I have been trying to tame this beast of software because Juggler is quite different from Loopback 4, right? The coding paradigm. So it's quite a different style and it's very like you can tell it's before TypeScript. So a lot of object mutations and whatnot. Um, I've tried my best so far to uh, create the type definitions for for Juggler based on just reading the source code, checking documentation, and then referring to other stuff as well. Um, so the PR is open. I've been continuously adding, like, and tweaking it. What if I see something? And I would love to hear feedback from like the OG maintainers for those who have experience with this and then maybe more familiar with the code base. See if there's anything wrong or anything that can be improved on. Because yeah, I because like a lot of things kind of relies on Juggler, and I would love to like get Juggler up to speed with its type definitions, so that we can move on to like LoopBack reports queue and whatnot.
So you are just trying to define
I'm trying to define the TypeScript definitions for Juggler, because Juggler, the definitions right now, although I think Raymond has done a great job so far, they are incomplete, and
Right.
and documentation on Juggler is at least available. Like documentation that's still out there on Juggler is quite difficult to find. So this is my best effort on like taking things out. And yeah, I would love to get some feedback on it.
Yeah, but these definitions from Juggler were performed manually, or
This was
at
all
that time.
Yeah, this was done manually. I can't find a way to do this automatically because, like, if you look at Juggler, there'll be somewhere in the middle of the code that, oh, this object actually has this property, even though it's not documented anywhere. So yeah, this was what I've been able to find, and I hope this, like, if we are able to at least progressively merge bits and pieces of this one by one, then we can start the progression on like modernizing our ORM.
Yeah,
Okay, so
it looks pretty good.
that's a great job, Rifa, because I didn't really was not really aware of what you meant when defining some things on the Joler in your Slack message, right?
Oh,
now I understand.
it's about the TypeScript types, right?
Yeah, yeah. So, but up to date, there is no actually another package or tool or CLI that can help you on updating that Joler definition so far from.
Well, I'm sure somewhere out there is some tools to help you like generate a like a rough estimate of what the definitions would be. But but I think as much of a benefit it's also a fault of JavaScript, right? It's you can do quite interesting things with it, and a lot of these properties actually to actually find all these type definitions. Some of them require digging quite deep into the code, because otherwise you won't find it anywhere else.
I see.
Yeah, and to actually understand what it does is also another task in itself. So yeah, because of all of that, I would love to get feedback on this, like the different perspectives. Because I'm definitely sure I've missed something or I misinterpreted.
I will try to see
From
from the Prisma PR. You haven't done any more work on this?
Prisma. Well, things have been changing. Life stuff have been changing from my end. So priorities keep shifting left and right, unfortunately. For the Prisma, I think almost everything is done. I can't emphasize this enough. Like 99% done. There are some like commented out test cases that I think are not too important, that I haven't been able to fix. Like for example, how do we catch errors in like the loopback context event listeners. I'm not too sure how to catch those errors. I haven't, because I've tried different ways. I haven't been able to. If you know, then maybe you can also help with that. The other problem is that somewhere in between, Prisma actually dropped support for Node.js 10, and they didn't do assembler major. So I updated the package lock, and then now we kind of have to drop Node.js 10 before supporting Prisma. Otherwise, the test will just fail for Node.js 10. But for all of the other tests, like all the basic features, it's already there. It already works. It's just that I didn't feel like it's like complete enough for me to merge. But and because like I actually want to get the other maintainers' feedback as well. Like maybe you want to try it out. Do you think it's good, or is there like some feature I need to add?
Mhm.
Like if you want to, you should be able to like clone that branch, npm pack, and then npm install the file.
Okay.
And it should just work fine.
Okay. I will take a look at that because that will be a great addition also for everybody that doesn't really like the juggler for the database layer.
Oh yeah, of course. Yes.
Mm.
Oh, and I think I remember now. The main reason why I haven't merged it is because I wasn't able to create the coherent like user story for it. I understand with Type ORM the strategy. I think Yapa, you were the one that worked with Type ORM, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, the approach that you've taken was create a minimum product that just links up loopback's lifecycle with Type ORM. For me, I was trying to also create the filter functions and everything else first, so that like you can just connect it easily instead of having to do a lot of manual work, right?
Right.
So that took up a lot more time because Prisma, the way they work, it has its own challenges as well. But for the most part, I think it works fine as is.
Cool.
It's-
Great. There is also want to mention a PR that is coming from the Guild guys, this team that actually developed the envelope package for the GraphQL. Uh, I'm not sure if the PR is here and open.
I think that the guys from the guild actually closed it. Um, I believe when mentioned he would take a look at it, but I don't think he had time to get around looking.
Mm.
Uh, for for me, I've not been able to like have a chance to look at it as well because um, it's kind of like competes directly with the GraphQL package that we already have. So I haven't had a chance to see how we can marry those two together. But I do hope we could merge that at some point, or at least provide support for envelope.
Mhm. Okay, great. So we'll take a look at your Prisma repository, right, and see probably we can launch an MVP and try to add features so that it doesn't stay there dormant, right?
Yeah, I think we should take a look at that. I was kind of surprised that the and actually quite thankful that the guild, the people at the guild actually created the PR for us, right? Like, they did quite a bit of heavy lifting for us, and I think we can take that code and tweak it, and adjust it if we need to, and then merge it to provide support for envelope.
Yeah, and that the thing is, for example, GraphQL changes the paradigm for us, right? Usually, whenever you are going into loopback 4, probably coming from LB3, um, basically you are a REST API developer, right? So GraphQL is really totally different, and whenever the IBM actually published the open API aspect to GraphQL, right? That little package, or great package though. Actually, it was more confused for me. I would really didn't have much experience with GraphQL. Then I saw GraphQL as a wrapper for REST servers, and the REST server, which are the endpoints, became the resolvers for whatever the GraphQL types were defined, right? But then that's not really GraphQL again. And I was lost again. And then I think that in order to understand this PR, or the great package that they just released right now, the envelope, you really need to understand the GraphQL without, getting involved with the REST API just alone, right? Otherwise, for us, coming from the REST API, not grabbing the GraphQL concept very well is going to be very hard. It doesn't really. And then I analyze, for example, different companies that are using GraphQL, and it doesn't really have a great adoption, right? So it's a great technology, but it's still REST API really rules. I mean, in terms of integrations and the enterprise also, right? But that's something that we need to actually get our hands on. Right?
Yeah, I very much agree with you, Mario. GraphQL is definitely has been for a few years now the hot thing in the market. Uh, I think that unfortunately for LoopBack 4, we don't have as deep of an integration with GraphQL as say with REST, right? With REST, we have this whole custom routing and integration with deep integration with AJV and like this whole sequence pipeline and whatnot. But then with GraphQL, I think we use Apollo, and then we just attach it to a REST server, right? So it's really just Apollo on top of LoopBack 4, not like LoopBack 4's deep integration with GraphQL. I do think Envelope can like help a lot with that vision because when they did the presentation, they demonstrated how flexible the API is, right?
Mm-hmm.
I do hope that we can merge that one, merge Envelope support, but that does require someone to champion the push for merging support for Envelope.
Yeah, it's a great technology, but I think that in my case, I'm going baby steps. Right. Hey, okay. Do you have something else, Jai?
Nothing much from my side. Rifa, you have anything more?
I think nothing much else. Just what we've done today. I think we have raised some of the major things to surface, right? Like the envelope PR, the code owners and whatnot. I think those are major stuff we should perhaps focus on as well. So yeah, all this stuff I think we can continue on the Slack channels and hopefully we can get something done.
Alrighty, then. Thank you, Rifa. Thank you, Mario. See you
Okay,
next
yeah.
month.
Yep. Take care.
Thanks.
Yeah.